Hello, good evening, and welcome to The Majority Show, broadcast live every week at Wednesday on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. My name is Mark Devlin. I'll be your host for tonight, and I'm here with co-hosts Mary Devlin and David Griffiths.
Good evening, everyone.
Right,
Hi, guys.
So what have you got for us tonight, Mary?
Well, tonight I'm going to be talking about transport woes up and down the length of Scotland.
Right, okay, and David, what have you got?
Well, I'll be asking, does the SNP want Scotland to stop drinking alcohol and instead become a nation of heroin addicts?
Oh dear.
I think that's the answer to that might be yes, actually. And we'll all be talking about SNP MPs heading for the door, big door, with some money on it in some cases. Anyway, that's for later. And Mary?
And of course, we have Zoomer of the Week.
Right, so we'll be back with all that and much, much more in just a second. Can find a thing. Right, welcome back to Scotland's #1 politics chat from an anti-nationalist perspective. You will not get this type of analysis and commentary anywhere else. Anywhere else, it's not that they're too scared, it's just they don't do it. And perhaps they are scared in some cases. I don't know, but here it is. This is where it happens. Anyway, so thank you for being with us. We're back tonight with co-host Mary Devlin and David Griffiths. And David, what have you been up to this week?
Well, quite a productive week. As you know, I jointly own some properties, guys, and you may remember I put on Twitter that one of the flats had been turned into a cannabis factory for the second time with one of our properties.
Okay.
I know. So the last of the drug paraphernalia was finally removed by us this week. What had happened was the police had kicked the door in, took away 96 large tubs of material for growing cannabis, and yesterday we removed a further 50. That van load certainly raised a few eyebrows at the refuse tip, I can tell you, along, of course, with lights, fans, hoses, fertiliser, and, most interestingly, odour suppressant, which doesn't really work because the guys next door could smell what they're up to and told the police. So it's interesting. We're very messy. So my clothes, hands, and fingernails have been absolutely black with grime and dust. But other than that, I've been watching with great delight and fascination as the SNP continues to tear itself apart. Wonderful.
Yes, it really is quite something. We talked before about your different predictions. Have been any movement on those?
Nothing really. I mean, the final two, the two predictions, if you remember, were that Sturgeon would be arrested and that she'd announced her marriage is over. The actual stories that I heard and passed on, all I've heard is that one media outlet is very strongly pursuing the evidence of the story about the marina, and he's really let a dog with a bone on this. So I'm very hopeful. The other one, I've had a few people genuinely coming back to me saying, look, about these private flights, I can't see anything that proves it happened. So it could be that one is just a little bit fanciful. I really don't know, but people are still looking. So hopefully have more info. And as soon as I get it, I'll share it.
Yes, that's great. We also did have some update on that for today about the Operation Branch form, and that was Livingston, who is the Chief Constable, Police Scotland. He said that the investigation had been expanded to include embezzlement and misuse of funds.
Indeed.
So we will be. We're not going to talk much about that tonight because we really that's all extra that happened there. So we'll come back to that. Come back to some other stuff later in the show. Anyway, we've got a few things to talk about. If you're watching on YouTube, you can get a shout out with a super thanks, a super sticker donation. So that's the thing. It should be on your wee button there. It says super sticker, super thanks. You can do that. All donations go to help the show. And if you're not on YouTube, please go to the Majority website where you can make a monthly or one-time donation. All money goes to powering our fight against nationalism, not for Taylor Swift's tickets. We said that last week. Anyway, why not reuse it? Okay, very good. This is my next part as well. Anyway, sharing is caring. Wherever you are, please like, share, comment, and tell friends. Extend our reach at the click of a button.
Indeed. And as usual, a huge thanks go to UK Union Voice and United Against Separation Facebook pages from where we know many of you are watching right now.
And as usual, I'll be handling all your comments, so please keep them short and snappy, and I'll try to get as many up on screen as I can.
Okay, there's lots to talk about on the show tonight, so we look forward to all your comments, and we will be back in just a second. Actually, I didn't mention that the other day. Oh, Mary, you're gone. Where are you?
Oh, come back.
I don't know.
You pressed something. What have you done?
Oh,
I'm still here.
Right, okay, try and come back.
Your video's gone off, Mary.
Yes, Mary, you've no video.
Okay, I will try to.
Click the settings down the bottom there.
Where are they?
Should just be a wee camera icon.
Okay. Anyway, while we wait for Mary to come back, I'll just take her off for the second. Okay. Then Dave, now we'll continue. Actually, we didn't mention that we were going to, based on some rumours that had come up, we took a trip over to Sturgeon's house to see if the news media was assembling outside. Unfortunately, that wasn't true. But this is the problem with this. There are so many rumours going about. Nobody knows what's going on. Let's see. Okay, so what we're going to talk about. First of all, we're going to talk about the SNP Exodus. Now, David, maybe you can handle this a little bit by yourself while I go and try and fix Mary's computer.
No problem at all, guys. I'll happily talk my way through this.
Okay, I'll put you on as just you.
No problem, that's fine. Okay, so today or yesterday, I think it might have been, we saw the news that Philippa Whitford, who is the SNP MP for Central Ayrshire, is joining the Exodus of MPs, and she made great play of the fact that she's not resigning, she's retiring. Wow, what a huge difference that makes, Philippa. Okay, great. So she's retiring at the end of this parliamentary term, which of course brings the total number of SNP MPs who have already announced their departure to 8. And I actually made the point yesterday that what this means, of course, everyone, is of the 48 SNP MPs who were elected to Westminster in 2019, we have quite an interesting statistic. 2 of them defected to Alba, that's Neil Hanvey and Kenny McCaskill, who are now sitting as Alba MPs, not SNP MPs any longer. They will almost certainly lose their seats in the next election, but let's see how many votes they take away from the SNP. That's the interesting factor. 2 further SNP MPs were suspended for various misdemeanours. Firstly, Margaret Ferrier, who decided that the way to deal with a positive COVID test is to jump on a train.
Oh, yes.
And so she is now sitting as an independent, and as of last week, she was joined by the one and only Angus Brendan McNeill, who decided that he had to speak out and say what an absolute mess the SNP is in. He also was suspended. He has made it clear he will not be seeking to rejoin, at least until October. And so he is also sitting as an independent. And now add those 4 to the 8 who are standing down, those 8 being Stuart Hosey, Philippa Whitford, Ian Blackford, John McNally, Mary Black, Douglas Chapman, Peter Grant, and Angela Crawley.
Running out of fingers.
Exactly.
Running out here. We're on to toes now.
All right. So we're now up to 12 SNP MPs have said they will not be standing. Rather, with the 8 SNP MPs have said they will not be standing. 4 others are no longer SNP MPs. That means the SNP has already lost 25% of its Westminster collective before the election has even taken place. Now, all of these guys are going to be, all of those seats rather, will be right up against it to be won by the SNP. So already, if you like, they're a quarter of their total down. So all good.
Well, they would lose, most likely, most of them would lose their seats. Are there any actual safe seats in there? Do you know that?
And those, let's have a look at those seats.
I mean,
I wouldn't consider them any of them particularly safe. I mean, the SNP doesn't tend to win seats by a massive majority, because most of the seats which the SNP win, you have a very clear second place. There are very few constituencies in Scotland where you have a strong Labour and a strong Conservative. East Lothian, where Craig Hoy came third with 9,000 votes. That's an exception. East Renfrewshire or Eastwood, that's another exception. But most of them, there's a pretty strong second place candidate in.
Yes, I do know that in our local one, Angela Crawley, who's also come out. It used to be very close between the Tories and Labour. Let's say it was 16,000 each almost, and SNP got like 19,000, something like that. And of course, that was a big argument for one side standing down or not, not fighting as much. But she's stepping down, and I think, of course, it seems likely that Labour is going to take that seat anyway. Absolutely. I mean, Labour is going to take a lot of the seats. I wonder if are there any ones that maybe Lib Dems could take, particularly in the islands?
Yeah, definitely. I think the Lib Dems isn't Blackford's constituency.
Yes.
I think. We're losing 2 seats next year, so Scotland will go from 59 to 57, and it's suggested that's part of the reason why Blackford stood down. I don't know whether his constituency is being amalgamated, but certainly the Lib Dems would be in a good place there. In the island, Angus Brendan's constituency, actually Labour are second place there, so they're more likely to win there. Liberal Democrats always win Orkney and Shetland, they always do, since Joe Grimmon's day. So yeah, they've got a few where they could win, but it's not. They won't win like a dozen seats or anything like that. Nothing like that. They might win 3 or 4, but that's about it.
Yes, but it still takes away.
Exactly, it does. And as we said last week, the Conservatives probably could hold on to their 6, maybe one more, but the rest we're really looking at Labour, certainly in Central Scotland and Glasgow, West Scotland. That's where you're really looking at Labour combating, possibly places like Dundee, the North East as well. So, yeah.
This Alba thing, I mean, they've got no hope of getting elected, but they'll split the vote, surely.
That's it, exactly right. They will do. But then again, Alba might say, well, actually, SNP, you're becoming unelectable, so maybe you're the ones who are splitting the vote. I mean, that's how bad it's going to become, possibly, for the SNP. And, this is what we say about branch form. People say, well, let's have a conclusion quickly. I don't know so much, guys. I'd say let this fester for a bit longer, because the longer it goes on, the worse the damage is to them. Yeah, really. So.
Yeah, well, it's true. It's extremely damaging to them there. I mean, now you might say that independence is just around the corner. So why are they leaving?
Yeah,
this is the thing. I mean, if I knew that I was going to be part of a new nation and all that, I'd be like still up there. But perhaps it's time. Maybe it's a toxic environment, as Mary Black said. Although Angus Brendan McNeill said it wasn't toxic at all. In fact, a load of nice folk, or somebody said.
We've got a comment here from Matt Gillies, who says, well, why did it take 8 years to find that Westminster was toxic? Anything to do with the mega wages?
Yeah, well, that's right. The wage packet isn't toxic, is it? That's definitely true there. Okay, so what we got here then? Okay.
Well, is it true that the SNP's Westminster MPs are kind of in an open revolt? They're fighting with the Scottish MSPs.
They're certainly revolting.
And each other. Well,
that's absolutely true.
Are they revolting? Yeah. Yes.
At the time of the election, the leadership election, I was told that the relations were just appalling, and that half the reason Flynn got the job was because they knew Blackford was just a liability, and Mary Black wanted the job, as I said. That was leaked also. Now Flynn said, no, you can't have it because you're not MSP. Then within 2 months she says, right, that's it, I'm leaving. So the likelihood is she'll end up in Holyrood. But as I said last week, I don't see many of these guys ending up in Holyrood. Certainly not Angus McNeill. I just can't see that at all. He's far too egotistical to take a step back, I think. So, and if they did, it would just be a massive battle between for selection between the former Westminster guys and the sitting MSPs. So the SNP is in a dreadful state right now. It really is. They're at each other's throats constantly. You just have to look at the leak of Eleanor Witham's WhatsApp messages. I mean, that is not the sign of a party which is in any way in good shape at all. I mean, the fact that you've got all this backstabbing going on and people are eager to say, look what she said, I mean, that really is bad. So, yeah.
It'd be interesting to see some modelling on this. I don't know if that much has been done so far. I think people wait to maybe see it settle down a bit more, and maybe perhaps the next round of polls we'll start to see a bit more modelling of what's going to happen. Last poll was very poor. Well, it wasn't a proper independence poll, as it were, but I think it was down at 35% in that one. Right. But it wasn't quite the right question. I think it was not specifically asked about that. It was asked as part of some other. Who would you like to? Have power, who's the best to apply power in Scotland, and that was only 35% said people wanted independence, 30% saying that they wanted the UK to exert more control, and 30% saying more devolution perhaps. Right. So that's numbers that we can hopefully work on as time goes on. Angus McNeill was in the paper.
Yes.
He was there. Would I have this bit actually? Where it is? Yes, he was in the paper talking about.
Well, he was mocked, wasn't he?
Yes, he was mocked, Mary. Where is it? But
Yes,
I
he
don't know
was
where I put the thing.
mocked for comparing himself to.
Oh, here it is.
Robert
Oh yeah,
the
at Bruce's cave, he did, didn't he?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh,
So here he is there. Western Isles MP managed to compare himself to King Robert the Bruce twice over the course of the weekend as his personal battle with the SNP leadership reached fever pitch. There he is there. And there's apparently that's the Bruce, Robert the Bruce.
Oh, they look alike, don't they?
There's the spider as well. Okay. As the story goes, Robert the Bruce hid in a cave for some time.
Well, that's what Angus McNeil should do for a while, and maybe he'll see some sense.
In the cave, and they saw the spider, and spider was like, "Whoa, trying to make a web, try and Robert Bruce said, "Oh yes, that's the moral of the story. The moral of me sitting in this cave hiding is that we should try again. Perhaps Angus McNeil should, but he's taken the motto a little bit further to if you don't succeed, try a de facto referendum. And if that doesn't work, step down the huff."
Yeah, quite right. Off you go, Angus.
Okay.
It really is laughable, isn't it? I mean, what's going on in Scottish politics?
Yes.
I can't believe he actually allowed that photo to be taken.
What
a joke.
Talk about lack of self-awareness. I mean, you know what you look like. Serious.
He looks so serious as well. It's
Yeah.
like, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Here I'm come to save the day. It's just nonsense anyway. Right, okay, that's very good. Next we'll be coming back in a second. We're going to talk about the rehabilitation of Alex Salmond. Is such a thing possible? Can you believe it's even possible?
Do we want it? No.
No.
Does anyone want it?
We don't want that. Okay, where are we? Okay, good. All right. Thanks to everyone of you who are watching, and to enjoy the show, but
it is much appreciated.
It is very
absolutely
appreciated. Thank you to our regular viewers as well. We're here for you every Wednesday. Right, David, this is actually just may as well just talk about it anyway. The rehabilitation of Salmond, is it possible?
Well, yeah, it's certainly what we are seeing looks like at least a partial rehabilitation. As I've tweeted this week, the recent turnaround in the respective fortunes of the two former First Ministers has been staggering. It's only 6 months ago, let's not forget, that Nicola Sturgeon was telling the world that she had plenty left in the tank and that lots of people might want her to step down, but no chance it wasn't going to happen. Of course, 3 weeks later, she did exactly that. So the tank obviously sprang a major leak. Anyway, since that time, of course, she stepped down as First Minister. She and her ex-SNP chief executive husband have been arrested and in all likelihood face criminal charges. My goodness. Salmond, on the other hand, is going from strength to strength. He now has a new TV show.
It's a weakness to a bit less weak.
Sure, but comparatively speaking, if you like,
right,
bearing in mind, I mean, if
Mark can't bear for you to say anything positive about Alex.
Well, he's now got his new TV show has been announced. Scotland Speaks on TOTD.
Scotland what?
Scotland Speaks. I've got a wee.
No, Alex doesn't let anyone speak.
No, she's got this is Tasmina Hamid Sheikh.
It'll be Alex Speaks.
And they've got this really ropey looking studio here. It's not got the sound here, but it's just like
can't
fake,
see it.
I know, it's just got this real fake look about it. So I mean, look at our beautiful studio.
I know, it's top class.
It's just fantastic what you can do with some real bricks. Anyway, these fake bricks don't really cut the mustard.
That looks like wallpaper.
It's pretty bad. Anyway, he's got this show, Scotland Speaks, and did you actually watch it?
No, I don't. I'm not sure if it started yet, but it's on Talk TV. Apparently, I think it's just planned. I don't know if it's.
No, I don't think it's on Talk TV.
Has it started? I didn't. I knew it was about to.
I think it's just a web thing.
Is it? Okay, it could be. I think it's. Isn't that? I thought it was like. It could be on. I don't know whether it's on their platform. I don't know. Anyway, that's what.
What's the time slot for it?
Let me see. Hold on. Let's see what it says here. No, it's an hour long thing here. And it was the first one, Scotland's Wind.
Oh,
well, no, that's not Salmond.
He is
That's
Scotland's wind.
It's about Scotland's offshore wind. Not anyway, 3,709 views, which is not much more than what we have on YouTube.
We have a lot more,
but we have a lot more on Facebook and the other channels as well. So
we usually go between 5,000 and 10,000 a week.
Very good.
Yes,
Very good.
When you add up all the channels together.
But
right.
in addition to his show, of course, who would have thought that Salmond would be asked to speak at Winnie Ewing's memorial service, while, of course, his nemesis Sturgeon sat fuming silently and with a face like fizz, apparently, in the audience watching. And worst of all, for Sturgeon's ego, Salmond has been selected by Brian Cox to interview Dundee's leading lovey at the Fringe next month, rather than Sturgeon, who performed the role last year, as I'm sure we all remember.
Yes, where's that? Here it is. Brian Cox ditches Nicholas Sturgeon for Alex Salmond at Edinburgh Fringes, agrees to appear and show. And we actually have the clip, though. I mean, I don't know if this is entirely a good idea, because last time Cox was roundly criticised for his ultra-nationalistic sentiments on stage with Nicola Sturgeon, where she had to actually kind of try and defend herself.
I realised that there was no social democracy was missing, and the only place that social democracy seemed to be present was back in my home country. So I thought,
yeah, right,
I've got to go. I've got to shift. I can't hang around with this anymore, because we're on a hiding to nothing. It's always going to be the same stopping game endlessly, and my country has to be free. We have to be free. We have to be our own person. Because it's become so obviously, I mean, anybody who comes here sees the difference between the North and the South. It's so evident now. And Scotland has never been more ripe for it. The only thing is, I just wish the people of Scotland would have a bit more confidence.
This is actually a different clip than I thought, but of course, it's our fault. It's the people of Scotland's fault.
And that's the thing that really gets me, and I think it's through conditioning that we haven't got that confidence. And once we've got that confidence, we will all agree, because everybody, you just look at this bunch of, I won't say it, but this bunch that we've just been through, and you know this is where we should be, and we should have our own country, and it should happen now. And it shouldn't be about personalities. It should be about country first, not politics, country first.
And democracy.
And democracy.
And do you think
yeah, the Asiatic thing there, country first, sound like Trump speaking now, or some such very, very right-wing populist type of speech there. I suppose it's just nationalism, really. That's what it comes down to.
It's like Britain first. It's no different. So, I mean,
that's right.
My analysis of this, is this a full-blown political comeback for the once shamed Salmond? No, it's not. I don't think so at all. I think it's more, truthfully, that many people inside the SNP now realise that he was, to some extent at least, mistreated over the way the allegations of sexual misconduct arose and were levelled against him.
There is a part of that, yes.
Yeah, okay. I think there's definitely something to that. And I get very few at the moment unprompted messages from people saying, "Look, have you heard this?" But I did get one yesterday asking if I'd heard it. It was the same whistleblower who revealed details of what was effectively an SNP insider's plot to try to jail Salmond, including, of course, Morell's famous WhatsApp messages about, let's keep many fires burning on the many fronts, or whatever it was he said. Anyway, the same person who revealed that skullduggery is this very same whistleblower who is responsible for leaking details of the fraud that led to Branchform. So it sounds like there's somebody very, very well placed in the SNP who is clearly passing on information, and it would appear that they've got some sympathy for the way Salmond was treated and very little sympathy for Sturgeon. And I think that in many ways is responsible for what we're seeing right now. But the fact that Cox has said, right, I don't want to talk to you again, Sturgeon, you're yesterday. Right. I know. Yes. Let's talk to Salmond. Wow.
Well, I suppose about the other ones, Cumming, Alan Cumming, and who else? There's a whole bunch of them, aren't they? Yeah. They were stroking her ego, so to speak, and or stroking their own egos by association. And the awfully quiet right now, but I do take exception to this thing Cox said. It's a bit similar to what what's that guy Thoughtland, what's his name, the guy from Hue and Cry said the other day.
Pat Kane.
That Scots are just Scots are not confident enough to be independent. That's not the case at all. Scots were confident enough to reject it.
We had a confident vote.
We had a confident vote where Scots came out, and by a huge percentage. And people say 10% difference, but actually that meant that there were 23% more people voted for no than yes, not 10%. It's because the way percentages work. I don't know. Mary, you're good with that type of thing.
Oh, sorry,
I lost you.
What was the detail? Yeah, I'm reading these comments. Actually, I've just someone's just reminded us that it's actually Nicola Sturgeon's birthday today.
Oh, isn't that lovely? Bless you.
We're having a party. Yeah. What were you saying about percentages? On you go.
Well, it reminds me of that song "Rubber Bullets." I'll have a party at the local county jail.
Yeah, there's 10.
Yes, roll up. Yes. Anyway, don't forget about that. I mean, we had a confident vote, and Scots confidently rejected nationalism.
Wasn't it? Yeah, there was 10%. Actually, 22% more voted for.
You're getting the same trouble.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Anyway.
Right, well, if you take the difference between the yes and no vote, which was about 10% difference, but then as a percentage of the no vote,
actual votes,
it's actually about 22%.
Yes, absolutely. That's quite a big difference. That is a big difference. There was an interesting article by Effie Deans today that said Salmond is going to be let back because he tried. And it doesn't matter to the faithful that he's a grifter and a groper. All that matters is he advanced the cause, and compared that with Nicola Sturgeon, who didn't advance the cause, and also talked a little bit about Winnie Ewing and the origins of the SNP a little bit. There's all this talk about how she was what they called her, something they used some kind of phrase for her. I'll have to look it up. Anyway, come back to that. And it's like, mother of a nation type nonsense. Like, wait a minute. When she joined the party, it was a bunch of real nutters and who didn't get anywhere in the polls. And the reason you didn't get anywhere in the polls was because they were nutters. And one interesting thing I think that Effie Deans said in this article was that at that time the party was just anti-English. It wasn't anti-British as such. And it became anti-British when Salmond reached out to the people of Irish heritage to try and get them involved. And that kind of strain of Irish republicanism that is part of that community. And it's not everyone in that community. I'm part of that community as well. Mary is too. So it's not everyone. But there is that they've been able to amplify grievance, this anti-British grievance that's based on the heritage of Irish. In fact, the original people like Winnie Ewing and all these people, I'm not saying her specifically, but the early SNP people were anti-Irish. They just want Scotland for the Scots. That's what they wanted. They didn't want any Irish folk doing it. So anyway, talking about that, basically, so that because Sturgeon didn't try and expand it, and that's her big crime. So Winnie Ewing's fine because she tried, and Alex Salmond was fine. He goes in the history books. He was a trier, but Salmond didn't. And by the way, if you want to read about how Sturgeon fares against a host of other European leaders, you may enjoy this book, which I will show you here. It's called Europe's Leadership Famine, which has just been released by a friend of the show, Tom Gallagher. Sorry, there's his name there. And it's basically about 23 different leaders in Europe and how their leadership was a disaster, really. And it includes Sturgeon in there, has comments on lots of different people. And it's quite interesting. We're going to hope to have Tom on the show maybe in 2 weeks, I think, to talk about where Sturgeon's position is. What do you think about some of the things?
Sorry, Mark, just before you move on, just to say you can order the book on Amazon. Tom Gallagher on Amazon. Please do. It's a really good read.
Okay, and if you like that, look at this beautiful cover. See that? Oh, that's amazing. I did that. So there you go. Anyway, we helped Tom with the book. So it was good to be involved in such a great project. David, any thoughts on what that? Did you read that Effie Deans article?
I absolutely did. I mean, some people will know that I've been talking about this for many years, right since the first ever All for Unity broadcast which I did, which was almost 3 years ago, I said in that, there's a substantial element within the neo-nationalist movement in Scotland, which is made up disproportionately of people from an Irish Republican background. And that's a fact, guys. These are the same people, as Effie said today, who were formerly voting Labour are now voting SNP. That's undeniable.
They're turning back, certainly. So perhaps their anti-Britishness isn't really that. It was just a protest at some point.
This is what I habitually call the SNP vote. It is fundamentally a regional protest vote. That's what it is. People in Scotland don't genuinely. There's no way there's a mass movement of people in Scotland who want to break away from the United Kingdom. There just isn't. There's if you like, general disaffection, generic disaffection with certainly the Conservative government. With there's some resentment of Westminster, but that's it. People don't really want to be marooned economically, socially, politically, and certainly they don't want to be worse off financially. They don't.
Militarily, even as well.
Exactly, indeed. There's militarily, especially. I mean, if you ever go over to, just across the water from here, when you see those nuclear subs going out to patrol the North Atlantic, and these are NATO subs, you've got to start thinking to yourself, there is no way that this can happen. We can't allow such a strategically, geopolitically placed ally just to leave NATO and become what? Place on its own. We can't possibly do that. It's not going to happen. I've never believed in it. I think this is, as I always call it, it's a brief flirtation with nationalism. Scotland is not a nationalist country at all. Scotland is, if anything, a socialist country, latterly anyway, by definition. Not a nationalist country. I will never accept that this is what Scotland is. So yeah, I think Ed's right.
Unfortunately, has been infected by the virus of nationalism, and hopefully we can do our part to get rid of that. Yes.
Catherine is asking, are we closer to the Golden Bridge, Mark?
Yes.
Oh yes,
yes. I think so. Actually, I think it's now. It's now obvious that people are going back. Mm. And what's interesting, I think, is when people start to go back, then those people are the most effective fighters. Because they say, they're like converted smoker. People who are smoking now who don't smoke. And they're like, come on, man, you can't really seriously be still doing this, that type of thing. So I think those are the people we have to help, and so on. And we'll see, and we'll talk about this in the next segment, actually, about the two-child policy, how much the Labour, the SNP now are trying to focus their attacks on Labour. So without any further ado, we shall go on to that segment. Okay, so a lot of discussion this week about Labour and two-child benefit cap. Also, it was introduced by the Conservatives in order to stop tax money being siphoned from smaller tax-paying families to larger ones in benefits.
Exactly.
At the time, SNP was all over it, calling it the rape clause, because in the rare case that someone was raped and had to have a third child, the state wouldn't pay for it. It's so vanishingly small, this thing, but they managed to make an immense amount of political capital about that. David, you remember that time?
I remember it very well. I think it was 2018, and Ruth Davidson came under unbelievable pressure, particularly from Kes Dugdale, funnily enough. She labelled it one of the most abhorrent policies to have come out of this heartless Tory government. I think the problem with it mainly is the fact that it, as a policy, it lent itself to saying to people, well, of course, if you can prove you've been raped, I mean, what? It's the packaging of it and the presentation of it was just dreadful, and it just allowed the SNP and Labour to label it a rape clause. It's just political insanity to do it that way, to present a policy that way. But as much of Conservative policy is, it's very, very poorly conceived, really. Anyway, but what for the benefit of those of you who have only really known an SNP influence in politics, this whole debate, the rape clause debate, goes right back to the time when this country used to have endless Tory versus Labour debates. And this is how it would go. The Labour Party would say, of course people should have as many children as they want. How dare you Conservatives say that families must restrict their numbers of children just because of you can't handle the economy? To which the Conservatives would reply, well, of course you can have as many children as you like, just don't expect the state to pay for it. And further than that, a right-wing Conservative, at least one, would say, of course, the thing is, if you're low income, you can't afford to have kids, it's very simple, don't have them. And that's how debate used to be in this country, of very kind of harsh, if you like, unfeeling sounding Conservatives against, oh, please, liberal bleeding heart Labour. That's how it was until the SNP came along and turned it into an endless constitutional squabble. So it's almost like nostalgia hearing this stuff again. But yeah, that's what it's like. That's
Deja vu all over again. So anyway, there's been calls recently there were calls for Labour to reverse the policy, and so far they've refused, saying there's no money.
Yeah.
Which is interesting in itself, because
it's true.
Quite unusual.
Exactly. What the Labour's trying to do here is introduce an element of financial responsibility and probity as an antidote to the piece of fiction that Jeremy Corbyn produced as his manifesto 4 years ago, where he said people could have free everything, including, puppies. I mean, it was just what? So that's what's driving Labour to this, clearly.
Yeah, that's true. And I think so. I mean, this is an interesting financial probity from Labour. I think people can perhaps respect that to some extent, but that, of course, doesn't go down well with the SNP, who want to give everything for free all the time.
Well, Mark Zegfeldt is saying, Mark will be back on the show next week. He's saying the SNP can top up the benefits if they wish. It will only cost 250,000, but they want to use it as a Westminster grievance.
That's right. And Mark just took the words out of my mouth. Exactly that. So I'm not going to say that part again. And there was an excellent post actually today by Neil Lovett, and he says,
David, is that on your side?
Yes, that sounds like it.
Is your window open or something?
That was a motorbike. It was a Harley just going past. Sorry about that, guy.
Okay, that's okay.
Is your window closed?
No, he's good.
Window is closed. Yeah, it is indeed. Yeah.
Wow.
Sensitive microphone. Anyway, an excellent post by Neil Lovett today, and he reminds that it's not mitigation, it's redistribution. The SNP get a certain amount of money, the Scottish Government, I should say, get a certain amount of money, and they can assign it as they like, right? But the point is that if they put some money somewhere, it comes out of something else. Right, and so any new benefit has to come to expense of something else. It's not they're mitigating Westminster policies. It's like they're taking away from something else that it would be spent on anyway. Nothing is free. Free bus passes, £300 million that could have been spent on poor people, for example, or doctors or hospitals or whatever it is. So I'd like to say, it's a dishonest argument anyway. But here there was a twist in the tail. Stephen Flynn came up, and this is a very short clip I've got here of him today talking, or maybe yesterday or the other day, talking about this, and he kind of lets the cat out of the bag. Let's see if I can get this.
It'll be quite easy to pay for it if the UK government was to put in place the funding to do so.
Well, there you go. Yeah. It would be quite easy to pay for it if the UK government was to put the funding in to pay for it. So let's just get this right, that UK taxpayers would have to pay for a benefit for Scottish people that nobody wants, that UK taxpayers don't want. And in fact, most Scots don't want as well, because there's some polling here, and you might think that there might be a big difference between what Scots think and what the rest of the UK thinks. But here, the polling here is, do you think the two-child limit for welfare benefits should be kept or abolished? This is UK, kept 60%, abolished 20%. And someone said, England!
Yeah.
And then someone said, among Scottish voters, keep 53%, abolish 31%, which, if I'm not correct, is a 20-odd% difference. So 80%. Basically, and as Phil Nichols says here, you got gubbed. So this is the thing. This is an unpopular policy, and what they're trying to do is make political capital out of it by trying to get UK taxpayers to pay for something that the Scottish government wants, but Scottish people don't actually want.
Indeed.
Yes. So.
Well, if we had to tote up everything that Scottish people don't want that we keep getting,
well, that's
like DRS schemes and ULEZ schemes and God knows what.
Yeah.
Well, that is very, very true. Right. Anyway, moving on. We're going to move on, but not before we do the T-shirt promo. Here is a beautiful Majority T-shirt that you can wear to parties and impress your friends. You can say, this is the same T-shirt that Mary Devlin wears in the Majority Show. How about that? It's so great, right? And anyway, that you can find on the Majority shop right now.
And we have a 10% coupon discount as well.
You can use the coupon, or if you would like to, any profits are donated to the Majority Show. If you'd like to not use the coupon, up to you. We don't care either way. But anyway, a portion for sale anyway, discount or not, goes to supporting our work at the Majority. So we'll be back in a few seconds. Mary's going to talk about more transportation issues.
Actually, I thought David was going to.
Sorry, I pressed the button by accident. That always happens.
Yes.
David was going to talk about drug policy, was
yes.
he? I don't think we've got time for that right now.
Do you want to leave that to next week,
we could just do a short section on just talk about the minimum thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but we talked last week about when Anne-Marie was on. She gave her excellent update on the work of facing a voice of recovery. To compound the SNP's utterly bizarre and grotesque drug policy decisions, we've seen press reports today that the Scottish Government is considering raising minimum unit pricing on alcohol from 50 pence to 80 pence. Now, the reason this is so bizarre is because there's a clear link between the introduction of minimum unit pricing of alcohol and a spike in Scotland's drug death rates. Because very simply, if you make one form of, if you like, stimulant more expensive to discourage its usage, then people who now can't afford it will seek alternatives. Anybody with half a brain could have predicted that would happen.
I think that's very true. I think that is true. I mean, people go for the cheapest high, especially if they're addicts, right? They want a high or a down, whatever it is they're for, you know. And I think this is a particular big issue for kids, especially, and kids. Or young people, I should say. And it's if they just go, well, alcohol is too expensive. If they're going to party, it's too expensive. Why are we going to buy all this alcohol? And, you know, instead we should just get some, you know, whatever drugs, whatever it is. It's just, you know, it's not that much different in price. And I think that's a problem. It's a kind of, it's one of these things with the SNP, the Scottish Government, they don't think about the other effects of anything ever. They just want to get a headline and say, all right, we're putting this up. And there's a puritanical, that's the word, puritanical streak that goes through them as well, and you can see it certainly in the Greens. They don't want us to use anything, you know, want us to whip ourselves as we use our cars and so on, and take the bottles back to the bottle bank in the third world queue, all that type of stuff, and we must be punished for enjoying ourselves. So I think it's
true. It's partly that. I mean, you have to ask yourself, though, I mean, really, what's the end game here? What do they seek? Because bear in mind, a lot of the people who criticise, for example, Anne-Marie's focus on recovery, these guys are pushing an alternative strategy, which is endless treatment. In other words, endless application of more drugs, of different drugs, to get them weaned off the drugs they already take. But all that does, particularly with adding on decriminalisation and giving effectively free diamorphine, which is heroin, as we talked about, when free taxis to take them there on the NHS, that's just keeping people trapped in the as what Anne-Marie calls a cycle of addiction. That doesn't stop it at all. So you have to ask yourself, what does the Scottish Government seek here? Does it really want, first off, to have its drug policy shaped by pharma companies? Is that really what's happening here? Because that's what it looks like. Or is this an attempt to finally kill off Scotland's hospitality industry, which is so badly damaged during COVID? Already you can't even get to Glasgow. You certainly can't go home from Glasgow at night anymore. If the buses stop running, you can't drive in. But what do we want to do? Does the SNP government actually want to see Scots giving up alcohol and instead take all this nice free heroin? I mean, seriously, is that it? Is that what we're aiming at?
Yeah.
What Anne-Marie said was that what we need in Scotland is a lot more rehab beds. We need people who are actually brought in and put on a path to recovery.
Yes.
And especially supervised by people who've been through the process themselves.
Yeah, right. But
rather than giving them methadone or heroin and sending them on their way.
We do have to take a bit of a step back, because I think the vast majority of people, right, don't have a problem with alcohol, right? It's just so why are we being punished for a bottle of wine? Right, it's not. I don't have a problem with it, and I might be happy to put some small tax on a thing to help people who are alcoholics if it went directly to those people. Just the same way as I'd put some, if I was, you know, buying a lottery ticket, which is gambling. You know, so of course some people have problems gambling. I put a wee bit of money, if a bit of money went to people with problems and that, and so on. But you know, most of us don't have the problem. So why are we being punished for this? Why are we being punished in the same the recycling thing as well? It's like most of us don't throw their bottles away. Target the people who have the problem. That's what we want to do, and it save a lot of money. And instead, you may said something quite interesting there, David. You know, it's pharma companies. What's happening, I think, is that these big companies are coming in and say, we can give you a recycling program, we can give you drugs, we can give you stuff, and you know, use our program. And then the politician thinks, well, not only that, I can put all these people working on this thing and get more power this is great, and spend more money and make believe I'm doing stuff. But nothing actually happens, and it annoys the general population. So we need to step back, I think, and say, look, this is settling minimum alcohol pricing. Why is this? This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And how is it going to be enforced? People can buy it from England, bring it over. There's going to be a whole black market now in alcohol.
Exactly. And what about the other way? Are people from England going to come up here and get these free decriminalised drugs too? I mean, really, guys? This is where the UK government has to step in and say, look, you're not doing this. You're simply...
Well, I mean, we've talked about this before, and this is the thing that basically this is the problem. As the devolution expands, the legislative devolution expands, they will continue to try and make laws, and those laws will inevitably bump up against the UK laws and will cause trouble. We have a parliament for laws. It's a House of Commons. We don't need stuff in Scotland, anything extra special like that. If you want to debate stuff, debate it up there. Right, and if that maybe need to be more decentralized or whatever, that's a issue for there. But this conflict is just increasing tension, and it's unnecessary. It's unnecessary.
Well said, indeed. Agreed.
Right. Okay. We will be back in a second or two, and we will be talking to Mary about transport.
Okay. Okay, so I will try to just give a few of the updates of the things that have been happening this week in the world of transport in Scotland, because it's very much broken. So first of all, this week, the Glasgow night buses, first they announced on Monday that they were going to withdraw their weekend night bus services across Glasgow from the end of July. These 11 bus routes that people use at the end of the night or whatever, a lot of people spoke out against it. And First Bus were saying, oh, well, these routes aren't viable anymore. There's low passenger numbers. But the bus firm now have said that they will continue to run the service until Sunday, August 20th, to allow for more talks with the council. So it's up to Glasgow City Council to step in. Now, this week, Labour's Paul Sweeney, he said that Glasgow City Council basically are too scared and they don't want to upset the bus companies. And what we really need is an Andy Burnham figure. Now, Andy Burnham being the mayor of Manchester, we need someone like him to transform the city's transport network and reinvigorate the city.
Well, I think they haven't been doing anything. I mean, we're even just talking about what about the link to the airport? Many years have they been talking about that. There's nothing going on. It's terrible.
Glasgow's a mess as far as transport's concerned. It's ridiculous. It's really bad. In other areas, I said we was going to go up and down the length of Scotland. So let's go up to the very top of Scotland. There's been a lot going on up in Orkney and the Shetland Isles with their ferries. This week, Shetland is urging ministers to go ahead with tunnels. They're looking for tunnels. They want to cut down the dependence on the aging ferry fleet. I think the average age of their ferries are about 30 years old. Now, last year when I was talking about ferries, I remember that the useful life of a ferry is only supposed to be about 25 years. So all of these ferries are, if it's an average of 30 years, you can imagine how old some of them are. It's ridiculous. So they're looking at alternatives. I think basically they're giving up on the idea of ferries and they're looking now at tunnels because they think that they can dig under the relatively short channels that separate the mainland.
Yeah, it's like the Faroe Isles, I think.
Yeah, in places.
They have
a whole network of tunnels.
It's amazing, actually.
I mean, it is something that can be done. Whereas that was in Shetland, on Orkney. Now, they were more in the news last week, but just bringing them in, saying that Orkney, they would like bridges between the islands. I don't think they're able to do the tunnels. And they feel that things are very, very unfair. So if you remember last week, Orkney had a lot of international news because they were saying that things were so bad that they were actually considering that they might leave Scotland, leave the UK, and that they might actually go with Norway.
Right.
Now, I think very much that was just to get everyone's attention and to say, look, we've been asking, to get the ferries fixed. It's not happening. So we might even consider something like joining with Norway again.
But I think this is a thing. Just a second on this, I do think this is a thing that Scottish Council should have the ability to opt out of Scottish government administration, and they should be able to say they have their own referendum, basically, and say, to their citizens, I suppose, that if you don't want to be part of the Scottish nonsense administration, then let's go back to Westminster. That would certainly put the cat amongst the pigeons.
I think for them it's very much a last resort, but it did get them attention. So that's up in Orkney and Shetland. And then moving over to the northeast of Scotland, this week SNP rebel Fergus Ewing, he's threatened to pull his support of the party if Humza Yousaf doesn't live up to his promise of upgrading the A9.
Wow.
Now, that A9 debacle has been going on for years and years
Decades.
now. Yes. Yeah.
And what's particularly pernicious about that one is that it's, people are dying. People are actually dying because the road is so bad.
It's true.
It's really, it's terrible.
Scary.
It's really bad. And it's, it's just a road. Come on.
Yeah.
A road.
Yeah.
And it's a road that people need, and it's a road that people need to, it's a priority. I think it is a priority.
So the whole transport network in Scotland is pretty much in a bit of a crisis.
Yeah, so someone said Humza was a transport minister, remember?
Oh God, yeah. I'll be talking about him a little bit more later as health secretary coming up soon. So their transport in Scotland is something that definitely needs to be worked on.
Here.
Oh, yes. Right. Good. Thanks for that update, Mary. Thanks for things you can do to support the show. We're at that part already. Right. You can make a donation. We already talked about that. If you can leave a super thanks, that'd be great. You can buy a T-shirt or a mug. You can subscribe to the show on YouTube. And you can tell your friends about us. Or you can do all of the above, which makes us very happy. Well, we're happy anyway, as you can tell, talking to you every week. But now, coming up, it's the moment you've all been waiting for. It is the highlight of the week. It is Zoomer of the Week.
Yay.
Right, I'll try and get on to this here. Let's see. Right. Here we go. Nomination for Zoomer is Brendan Hurst, who you haven't heard of, but he's on Twitter. Last week, Mary's nomination was for Iona Fife, Scottish folk singer and prominent nationalist, professional victim who had managed to buy 3 tickets in the pre-sale for Taylor Swift's upcoming Murrayfield concerts, despite grifting for donations only a short time before. That's the problem with it. Well, many problems with it.
Selfish as well.
Well, parents across Scotland have been, Angus has been trying to get tickets with pictures all across social media of tickets going for £500 or over. And that's not even from the touts. That's from the list price. Taylor's in big demand. So it was bad enough that Miss Fife bought 3 tickets from her donations. Then the story took an ominous turn yesterday when we found out finally why these tickets were so rare. And this was where Brendan comes in. It's because the English were stealing them.
You're right.
Here's a post here. English effers buying all the Taylor Swift tickets at Murrayfield and then be like, why do they want independence? And Hugh gives the thing. So, okay, right. So, it's bad enough that the English have stolen our oil, our wind and our water, and now they're stealing our Taylor Swift tickets. Imagine William Wallace on the battlefield before the assembled troops. Right, lads, everything to fight for today. They may take our lives, but they will never take our Taylor Swift tickets. Right, so now we have to do this bit, which has all the Taylor Swift song titles in it. So bear with us. In a story we know all too well, it seems Brendan, the anti-hero, has bad blood with the English. Mary?
Oh, sorry. Am I? Where are we? I'm too busy putting the comments in.
Right. David, you could do it.
Can you do my part?
Yeah, I think Brendan should probably shake it off.
Oh, he needs to calm down.
Yes, because after all, he's just a blank space.
Oh, God, I knew he was trouble when he walked.
Look what you made him do. Oh, what fun.
Right, so anyway. Read the script next time, Mary.
I'm sorry. I've got my. I'm reading through all the comments. There's so many comments coming in.
So anyway,
Did I sound as if I'd ever heard of any of those Taylor Swift songs? Because I'm very sorry.
Yes. Well, no, she's a great artist. Definitely, very, very great artist.
You could have given me a heads up that I had a part to play in this.
Yes, well, that's true.
Yeah.
Well, I knew you were trouble. Anyway, okay, so for that, saying that the English are stealing Taylor Swift tickets, I mean, just cannot believe that someone actually said that. But, Brendan, you're the Zoomer of the week.
Oh my goodness, what a guy.
Right. David, I think, is it you? David?
It's me next up, yeah.
Right. Hold on then.
Right, my candidate for Zoomer of the Week is Scottish Greens MSP Ross Greer. Now, big skinny Ross, as we know, has plenty of previous for making absurd inflammatory statements. For example, Winston Churchill was a white supremacist mass murderer, and Ross would like to see Buckingham Palace burned to the ground. Right then, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, please. Yeah, great. Okay, what a debater. So this week, Ross added a further outburst to his catalogue of sixth-form statements, which is that he describes Israel as an apartheid state, and he further claimed that it should be boycotted, sanctioned, and isolated, exactly as happened with apartheid South Africa. Now, this is exactly the type of outburst we heard routinely for years from hard-left socialists associated with the Labour Party, particularly when Jeremy Corbyn was leader. Thankfully, that situation doesn't exist anymore, so we don't hear this so much from Labour, thank goodness. But bear in mind also that calls for a boycott of Israel are, in fact, in breach of International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition of anti-Semitism, so he's in very dangerous ground saying this nonsense. But leaving that aside, Greer is becoming, I think, more and more outspoken in his utterances. I think, as I was asked this earlier today, do I think Greer is maybe somebody who's more of a worry than Harvey and Big Lorna? No, actually, I don't. I think he's just a little guy with a big mouth, and I think it's true that he can. I think he foresees the imminent end of the SNP Green Hollywood Alliance. I think we will see more of these outbursts from the increasingly desperate for attention Ross Greer. But one thing I should point out here, I have mentioned this, I don't know if you remember this, guys, but an All for Unity supporter revealed to me during campaigning, Ross Greer has held an ambition since childhood. Now, do you guys remember what his ambition is?
No, what is it?
Since his days at Bearsden Academy, Ross Greer's ambition, and this is true, guys, Ross Greer's ambition is to be the moderator of the General Assembly of the Church of Scotland. And I'm not joking.
What?
So I just wonder,
he's a minister, is he?
How's that work?
He thinks I guess he's of the Presbyterian faith and he wants to be the top dude. So I just wonder what the Kirk would make of Ross's assessment of the Holy Land. So anyway, for yet another half-witted schoolboy utterance, my nomination for Zoomer this week is big skinny Ross Greer.
He's just one of these people, comes into politics, no experience of life, thinks everything can be solved by government and pronouncements, thinks they're better than everyone else, thinks that they're opening their daft wee mouth is, more important than the lived experience of actual ordinary people, and that includes renters, you know that, David.
Yeah, he hates landlords.
Hates landlords, hates fishermen, hates everybody that's not him.
Quite.
Okay, right. Mary, you are up next.
Okay.
Give me a second.
My Zoomers of the week are two old nationalist pals who like to help each other out. I'm talking about First Minister Humza Yousaf and actor Martin Compston. We found out this week that back in 2021, when Humza Yousaf, he used his position as Health Secretary to help a Canadian TV star skip the queue for a COVID jab after Compston, an SNP supporter, as we all know, contacted Humza asking for advice on how to get a vaccination for his co-star Emily Hampshire. And his email began, "Hey mate, hope you're well." So the health minister, of course, forwarded the email to his private office and it eventually made its way to NHS Lothian, and an appointment for the actress was then arranged by the health board. It's nice to have friends in high places, isn't it?
Yes.
But if you remember, Compston appeared in Humza Yousaf's official online campaign launch for the Holyrood 2021 election, and he starred in the promotional video for the SNP in 2015.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah. So they're all big pals. But this seems to be a breach of the ministerial code.
Oh, okay.
And Humza Yousaf should immediately refer himself to the independent advisor or the ethical standards commissioner or somebody. He should be reporting himself everywhere, basically. So if Humza believes that he has broken the rules, then he's able to refer himself to the standards watchdog. However, as First Minister, he is solely responsible for any action to take.
Yeah.
So he's his own judge,
Right,
and jury.
I've just made up a joke. Okay, so what movie did Humza Yousaf and Martin Compston both appear in?
I don't
Rig.
know.
Dumb and Dumber.
The
Rig. Why?
Rigged.
Rigged. It's all rigged. Okay.
Oh, God.
Yeah, that's a bad joke.
Right, okay. Well, okay, my comedic skills are not that great, to be honest. Okay,
no,
anyway.
not really.
Right, okay. So,
but Annie Wells, she said that sharing pro-independence views in a relationship with Mr. Yousaf boosted your chances of getting vaccinated. So while everyone was, standing in line and hundreds of thousands of people were waiting for their second jab, then, Martin got his old pal Humza to get his colleague in there and get her jab.
Well, guys, as I've hinted a few times on Twitter, if my information is correct, then Humza is not above, how shall I put this, using paid medical practices in order to obtain small-scale procedures for money to skip queues. And that's if my information is correct, that's what he's done very recently. And as a little clue, it gave him much sharper hearing, the procedure. So that's what I'm
yeah, well, I could do with that.
Yep.
Actually. What was that you said? So anyway, right. It turns out it's me to decide. And while the Martin Compston, is an annoying guy, I don't think it can be that one. I mean, it's pretty annoying, I have to say, to do that. Just shows it's all clubby.
It's all cronyism, isn't it?
Cronyism.
Yeah.
And Gross Greer, well, he's on every weekend. But I have to give it to my own guy.
I think that's fair. I think it's fair because the utter absurdity of what he said. I think that's pretty fair, really.
So Brendan?
Yeah, Brendan for blaming the English for
stealing Taylor Swift tickets.
That's ultimate Zoomerism. That can't be. We can use that for years to come. Not stealing the water, wind, the pipeline down to England, and so on, and then to poor Taylor getting a ticket stolen.
No wonder we have grievances.
I know, it's shocking, isn't it? Really. All right. Okay, thank you very much for being with us tonight on the show.
Great to be here.
Really good.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for all your comments.
Okay.
Yeah, brilliant, guys. See you in a couple of weeks.
Really good. So I'm going to leave you with the thought of the week. Remember last week, and almost every week, when some nutter complains about Union Jack or Union flag, just packaging and Scottish products that aren't often Scottish. Well, this is what we need to say to them. Which part of the flag bothers you? Is because it isn't the Scottish part, right? And it isn't the Irish part. And what's left?
The English.
The English part, right? So basically, what anyone who's saying they don't like that flag is, anti-English bigot. Now, we don't talk much about flags here, but you don't be a bigot, because don't use the flag to hide your bigotry. That's not right. That's not right. Anyway, so we're all so happy to have you on the show with us every week. Please tune in next Wednesday for more chat and discussion of Scotland's #1 politics show. I was Mark Devlin, and with my co-host Mary Devlin and David Griffiths. Thank you all for you being with us tonight.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Fine, fantastic, guys. Thanks again. See you all again soon.
Good night. Thank you.